Hi, everybody. Thank you all for being here. My name is Kenny Delino. I graduated BC High in 2016. Now I work back at the advancement office, so I'm doing alumni work. I'm the assistant director of alumni programs. I run BC Hire, which is a program that was established to connect alumni with internship and job opportunities. I went off to BC after I graduated BC High. I graduated 2020. Recently had my graduation over the weekend, which was great. Um, and I'm really just excited to have all of you a part of this webinar today. We have some great panelists, some great alums on board who are gonna spark a really interesting conversation. This is the first time that we'll be doing a webinar on grad school, so I hope it's very informative for everybody. For all those who are attending, feel free to use the chat box to put any questions that you have below. We'll have a Q&A section towards the end of this. So any questions, just put them in the chat box. We can definitely get started right now. So I'll introduce all the panelists that we have on board, and then I'll transition it to Tom Wesner, who will be proctoring this conversation today. So today we have two alums from the class of 2010, John Carney and Andrew Morgan. John is a current MBA candidate at Vanderbilt University at the Owen Graduate School of Management. Andrew is a current MBA candidate at the College of William and Mary, and he just got his law degree from UConn last year. And then we are accompanied by Tom Wesner, who's a class of 85. He's also a former parent, a graduate. His son TJ was a graduate of the class of 2017. Tom currently is a professor at BC's Carroll School of Management, both in the undergrad and the MBA program there. He's also the director of the Carroll School of Management Summer Catalyst Program, which is a full-time intensive summer program for students at BC who are not a part of the business school, but it helps them develop, the foundational skills needed for a career in management. Tom also has his JD from Northeastern and his EDD from BC's Lynch School of Education. So he's quite accomplished. So we're glad to have everybody on board. So I will transition it to Tom. He's going to be proctoring today's conversation. So I hope everybody enjoys today, and yeah, Tom, you can take it away.
Thank you so much, Kenny. It's good to be here, and we appreciate your work setting up the panel. And I'm happy to be on with Andrew and John. And so maybe I would just like to start by asking John if he would share a little bit about himself, maybe where he's from, maybe something he did at BC High that he has fond memories of. Maybe he can tell us how many times he was jugged over his years at BC High. No conversation starts at BC High with alumni without talking about jug, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then maybe John, just sorry to interrupt, maybe you can explain a little bit about your decision to pursue the MBA and what you hope to accomplish with it.
Yeah, Tom, thank you. Just want to echo Tom's sentiments. Kenny, thank you for setting this up. This is great. So I am John Carney, class of 10, as Kenny had mentioned. I am from the small, great town of Cohasset. Made way up to BC High, played football, winter track, and baseball. Got a couple straight rings in winter track and baseball, luckily. Still have those, probably one of my more fonder memories. But only jugged once, actually, senior year. Miss Esposito playing Sporkle. At the time, that was the game. So she caught me playing Sporkle. I was honestly learning probably more so than anything else. But after college, after high school, I went midway to the University of Notre Dame out in beautiful South Bend, Indiana. Spent 4 years there, accounting major. Kind of senior year, kind of realized it wasn't something for me I wanted to do going forward long term. So decided to make my way back to Boston and started at Fidelity down in Smithfield, Rhode Island, working bareboat accounting. Worked way up to Boston in their capital markets division, specifically their fixed income desk. I was on their fixed income sales desk. Prior to coming down to Nashville and pursuing my MBA. It was my decision to kind of pursue my MBA was kind of twofold. I always thought about, ever since senior year of undergrad, when I realized what I was majoring wasn't really what I wanted to do going forward. I had the back of my mind that I needed a proper schooling or more of an academic kind of framework for what I wanted to do going forward. And then also out of necessity, the number of desks or the number of heads on the sales desk and trading desk had dwindled significantly at capital markets, algorithms and automation that's really kind of taken over. So I kind of realized I wasn't going to be able to do that much longer, and what better way to get my MBA and kind of expand my horizons. My choice to kind of get my MBA was kind of really to broaden my horizons in terms of the global market as a whole, kind of also kind of it provides an arena to really kind of check maybe interest you might have, and there's really no kind of repercussions for failing in doing so. So I had a kind of a strong interest in commercial real estate, and kind of tested that out last year, realized that also wasn't for me, but kind of a corporate finance focus right now, and recruiting, hopefully making my way back up to Boston. The value I hope that the MBA presents is obviously there's technical skills that you gain in these 2 years, but also I think the more so the MBA presents is your development of your soft skills, your leadership skills, your communication skills. So prior to coming to the school, I had no really explicit leadership kind of roles within Fidelity, and no one really reporting to me. So coming out of this MBA, in terms of it's working more on my soft skills and my ability to communicate and lead, and that's kind of hopefully I hope to lever wherever my career path takes.
Great, thank you very much, John. Andrew, would you like to address the same things, maybe a little bit about your background at BC High and what led you onto your JD and MBA dual degree program?
Yeah, so kind of similar to John. John and I are from the same class of 2010. I played soccer all 4 years. I was part of the first crew team, so you're welcome. We helped start that. I was part of the UN club, the investments club. I'm from Hingham, Mass, so literally a town over from John. We probably took the same bus and train together, but we had a lot of the same friends. From BC High, I ended up going to High Point University, which is in North Carolina. I'd look it up. It's gorgeous. It's got 7 pools on campus. So that really sold me. And I did business administration and economics. And honestly, it was just kind of a general, everyone kind of got that degree. I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. My father is a lawyer, used to work in Boston, now has his own practice in Hingham. But I kind of always wanted to test out those waters. So he told me that I had to take a couple of years. It's a huge investment, unless you get a full scholarship, but it's very, rare for that. And so he had me work at Goodwin Procter in Boston for 3.5 years as a litigation case assistant. And then I was, willing, and I thought I was at that point that I could make the jump. So I looked at schools pretty close by. I wanted to stay in the Northeast, and UConn was kind of the best bang for its buck as far as rankings, in-school or in-state tuition. And, I'm not the typical JD MBA. We can talk about that later, but COVID hit and I had to make a pretty quick adjustment. And that's what kind of led me to William & Mary, which is where my parents went and met. They actually got married on campus, and my brother went here for a year. So I knew the campus. I had seen the business school, and, I can go this quickly, but I applied in May, I got in June, I accepted in July, and I moved in August. So it was a very quick process for me. But just the last thing, going over the skills, John hit it right on, nail on the head. The MBA is more of a teamwork, leadership, public speaking, while the law degree is more of an individualistic approach. And as far as you're going, research, writing, and public speaking. But I didn't see the same teamwork, concept between the two. But I appreciate it again, Kenny, Tom, thanks for being here. I'm excited for this.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. And so maybe I'll just quickly introduce myself. Kenny said a few things earlier. So my name is Tom Wesner, and I graduated from BC High in the 1980s. And I played 3 sports and was fortunate to have Jim Cotter. Many of you have heard about Coach Cotter over the years, and his daughter, who's now our president, Grace. And Coach Cotter was, I could say, old school, right? As were the Jesuits in the 1980s. They would say that JUG is, we know what it stands for, but they would say, boys, discipline is love in disguise. And so that's why if your shirt's hanging out, if you're, it's untucked, we're going to put you in for 45 minutes. And we used to have to, I don't know what you guys had to do, but we used to have to copy down, text from the handbook verbatim. We just have to sit there and copy it out, But I had a few jugs in my time at BC High, and it was all, in good fun, I think. But a great school. It prepared me extremely well. I had something called the sophomore essay. I don't know if you guys had it. Did you guys had it? And that really taught me to write. And little did I know that years later I would be writing and writing and writing, professionally. And so all those habits of the mind and training and the sports and balancing academics with homework and pop quizzes. I still hate pop quizzes, right? From my time at BC High. And I didn't like them then, but I appreciate them now, I should say. And so then I went to Boston College. Coach Cotter actually wrote me a recommendation, and I'm sure it helped a lot. And I went to BC and had a great time at becoming a double eagle with a lot of my classmates in that era. I think many more students from BC High were admitted to BC. I think I had almost 50 classmates from BC High at Boston College. Kenny, you probably had far fewer than that, right? Maybe 10 or 15 or something like that. Not sure.
Yeah, well, for us, for my class, I think we had 30.
Did you have 30? Oh,
yeah,
great.
I think we had 30. So I think the average number now is probably lingering around 25, 30 per class.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And congrats on your graduation, your belated graduation, by the way. I saw Anthony and Omanosa from BC High on Sunday, gave them a shout out. And so after Boston College, I really was one of those people. I was maybe more of a late bloomer. And so I took a break from academics. I didn't go right to grad school. And I waited a couple years that I was a teacher. I taught in the Boston public schools for a few years. And I thought I was going to do it for 1 year and then maybe 2. I kind of got used to, exercising and having summers off and breaks. And then I thought it was time to go back and get a law degree. And so I pursued my JD and I passed the bar and I worked in a law firm and I tried that life out. And then I, went back into education and then pursued my doctorate in education from Boston College, which led me to higher ed. And Kenny said, I teach now in the Carroll School and run a program for liberal arts students who want to take business. So all of that is to say that I think, getting the extra initials after your name can really, I think John spoke to this, it can add weight and credibility to your resume as you go. And really, I don't know what the percentages of BC High alumni who go on and get an advanced degree, but I think in today's world, sometimes you hear in higher ed that, a master's is the new bachelor's, where the world almost expects you to have an additional degree beyond a bachelor's to compete. And it certainly distinguishes a candidate and differentiates them, whether it's a master's or an MBA or a JD or a doctorate or something. So that was, in brief, that was my trajectory. I want to push on here and ask, maybe we'll go in the same order, John. What about timing? Do you think it's better to pursue an advanced degree from your experience right away? Wait a while, gain some experience in the work world? Any reflections on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Tom. So in terms of my personal stance here, in terms of my personal career path, is the MBA, I probably wouldn't even get half the value what I would have out of it if I hadn't gone to work for 5 to 6 years. I was the average profile for my MBA class. Usually 28 is the incoming age. It's just given the kind of, as Andrew said, the kind of the teamwork basis. A lot of case studies. within your curriculum that you need to kind of draw from your own experiences within workplaces. It really just kind of really drive home the value of that of your MBA. For me personally, in terms of the value of the MBA, I really needed those 5 to 6 years prior to coming back to school to kind of really get the most value out of that degree. With that said, if you're looking to go more towards a more technical degree, MSF or Master's in Accounting or Marketing, I don't think there's much, a lot of the profile within at Vanderbilt, and I think a lot of other schools probably similar, is a lot of those kids are like 5th year seniors, basically like 23, 24, just out of college, that really know what they want to do. It says a highly technical degree, whereas you're not really kind of worried about the leadership or soft skills. It's very technical. You eat, breathe, and like sleep marketing or accounting for that 1 year to really kind of boost your resume and specifically a more competitive applicant pool, especially with COVID these days. So I think it depends on which degree you're getting. I think it's kind of a cop out here, just saying it depends. But for me, those 5 to 6 years I really needed for my MBA.
Great. Andrew?
Yeah, and I'll go off of that as well. And I totally agree with John on this, in that, at least for the MBA, I have 2 things on this, and one relates back to law school. Is I think the first thing is maturity, is that you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars depending where you go, and that you need to make sure that you're taking this serious. Every day should be almost treated as a day at work, and that's a long day at work. You go to class for 6 hours, you're in the library for another 6 hours, and you do this on repeat, and you're even doing this on weekends. So it's a maturity level. I think that 24, 25, you're getting to that point. But then the other thing I've noticed, especially with the MBA, and I run our MBA association, but I help with the networking. And even though COVID has allowed some of the younger students to do an MBA right out of college because admissions are looking to fill their numbers, they're having a tough time finding jobs when you're comparing them to candidates that have the 6 to 7 years out of school. And it's working out for some, but it's definitely a lot more work on their part. And so that's why I would just recommend, maybe taking a few years, making sure this is what you want, but it also just helps you prepare, your career later on.
Great. One thought came up to me last night when we were planning for this webinar, and that's kind of COVID. COVID has kind of altered the universe in some ways. A lot of people quit their jobs. We're reading about them. They just quit and they said, I don't want to do this. They're making changes. People lost out on a lot of opportunities. Some people maybe thought about new career trajectories and advanced degrees and everything. How would you gents maybe talk about COVID? Did you see it make an impact? Has it slowed things up? Has it given you pause to think more deeply about your life goals and kind of any of the above? Any reactions?
I'll start here. I don't know if I'm more of an anomaly being in Nashville as opposed to being in another part of the country where COVID really wasn't much of a kind of limiting factor for us. We had classes in person and whatnot, but I actually applied prior to kind of the pandemic spreading, but I made my decision during it. And I think if I had applied during COVID, I think it would really more reinforce my decision to go to school. So in terms of what you said there, Tom, your observations, I kind of sympathize with those. In terms of, I think it's a great time to kind of, like I said, kind of it's an arena where if you're not necessarily happy with what you're doing, or maybe you want to try something new, is a great time to do so. It probably is an arena where you can try out your interest without kind of any fear of backlash, or kind of like it's a place to kind of really fail, as much as people would hate to admit, given the kind of the profile of the average MBA candidate. But in terms of if I had decided to apply during COVID, I think I had been much more inclined to do so, honestly.
Great. Andrew?
Yeah, and I'll just, I am that person that it did change my trajectory. So COVID hit me my 3L, my last year in law school during spring break. And I had been in the interview process to find that full-time job and was pretty sure I had it. And I remember when it hit, they pretty much shut down all interviews. So instead of waiting around, taking the bar with, and it got postponed for months, I decided to quickly make an adjustment. And I think it's a perfect time to try something new. When I applied to MBA program, I was kind of seeing it as an opportunity to let the markets recover. And so that first year, you could tell, like, I was lucky enough to get the internship, but there was a lot of individuals who had a tough time because I think companies were a little weary about, where are we going to be in the next couple of years? But from what I can see, it seems like it's picking back up. And I'm seeing like a lot of our classmates are now getting the jobs they want. And some of them are even getting paid higher because the demand is so high with a lower supply. So if anything, I think it worked out in your favor if you took advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, interesting. What about when we think about, we have young alumni at BC High thinking about graduate programs and kind of the risk reward, dilemma. There's such an investment, the opportunity cost, right? I mean, you're not working. If you're going to a full-time program, you might have rent, you might have to take loans, you might have to, thinking about a relationship or possibly getting married. What is the rigor of the program look like, feel like, maybe compared to undergraduate life? And what would a normal week look like when you factor everything in and you look at the risks and rewards? Maybe talk about how you can endure emotionally for that often 2 or 3 year program. Any reflections on that, John?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Tom. I think for me, it just kind of going through the BC High experience and just the rigors of that. In many senses, the curriculum at BC High was more difficult in my first 2 years at undergrad. So my experiences at BC High not only set me up for undergrad, but also this degree as well, in terms of with the rigors of not only just the curriculum, but also kind of dealing with those relationships. A lot of those like kind of experiences in terms of leadership I draw from are my experiences at BC High. Whether it was on BC High is kind of, I think, very unique and unrivaled in not only just the New England area, but across the country, and its ability to kind of educate the whole person. I don't know of any other high school where you can perform A Few Good Men in front of a sold out Boulder auditorium. You have a late game at bat against CM in the state tournament under the lights at Braintree High School. In terms of, or even offering experiences like Kairos, that's Kairos 49. That's probably my most formative experience to date. I don't know if there's any other high school across the country that kind of is able to kind of encapsulate that. So if there's any worries or worries about downside in your ability to do so, I think just going through the rigors of BC High itself, regardless of your undergrad, I think it sets you up extremely well to do kind of perform well and get that degree. Like you said, but like you said, it's a very heavy investment. I know that could be kind of overwhelming for some. A lot of companies do offer kind of they will subsidize you. I know Deloitte will actually pay you or sponsor you for your 2 years or your MBA. Granted, you come back, but also I think there's so much opportunity within the Boston area. I know I went to Nashville. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but in terms of like MIT, Harvard, Babson, Bentley, Northeastern, the BC, to make sure it's BC. There's so many great schools in that area. You need to take advantage of that. So in terms of maybe like going part-time or full-time, for me, I decided it was kind of like I was going back and forth on that. Fidelity would also subsidize my education as well. But for my personal development, I kind of saw the need to kind of go somewhere new. All my family was back in Boston. I kind of needed to kind of strip away at those safety nets for me in my personal development. So I went to the city, Nashville, never been there, didn't know a single soul. So that was kind of my personal decision in terms of part versus full-time. Also, I know talking to some, part-time can be, depending on what role you're in, it can be a little burdensome given your workload, from what I've gathered, but it's from what I've heard. But for me, the full-time decision was kind of just 2 years, Band-Aid, rip the Band-Aid off and kind of go from there.
Thank you, John. Andrew?
Yeah, so I mean, BC High was much harder. as far as undergrad kind of went. I think undergrad was more of a time for you to figure out what general area you wanted to pursue. And then I think the MBA or some other graduate degree builds off of that. But I think BC High really, you're already ahead of, I don't want to say you're better than public schools, but you're tested earlier than public schools, and that some of us are traveling an hour on a train to get to school. Then we have practice, then we're traveling another hour back. It's like, that's not normal. And so it's really testing, you being uncomfortable. But once you get through that, college is going to be a breeze. As long as you do the, dot your I's, cross your T's, like do the homework, study for tests, you're going to be fine. I wouldn't worry too much as far as grad school goes when you're in undergrad. Enjoy the process. And it's a case by case analysis. Like, everyone's different. John and I, obviously, we have similar degrees, but very different, journey to those degrees. And so when you're looking at the rigors of grad school, I mean, you're going to be tested. That's the whole point. But I think at some point you're going to realize this is the same stuff I've been doing since I was 16 years old. It's just a little more advanced. And sometimes you just need to take a deep breath and realize, you're here to learn. You're not supposed to fail. They don't want you to fail, and you'll do fine in the end.
I agree with that, with those comments. And I think also, maybe to add a little bit, I think sometimes, high achieving people that are trained, universally at BC High, think that maybe they get that itch, at age 22, 23, 24, like, oh, I got to go to grad school. I got to go to grad school. And maybe you might start looking at different and diverse programs to just say that you're in a master's program or something. My advice, and I'm sure Andrew and John would agree, would be to make sure it's a program that fits your strengths and your interests and your aptitudes. We have this famous kind of reflective exercise at BC around vocational discernment. And Father Himes, the priest, who's not a Jesuit, who kind of developed these 3 questions, introduced these at a retreat for students, and then the questions kind of took root and have led to a lot of soul searching, examination of conscience, and reflection. And the questions about career are these 3. What am I good at? What brings me joy? And what does the world need me to do? And it sounds like, well, that's a pretty simple formula for kind of thinking about where I belong on this earth, but what are you good at is a really important question. I might want to play the guitar and join a band, but if I quit my job and told my wife I was going to do that, she'd say, well, you might be good at the family barbecue, or not, but the world doesn't need you to do that. No one's going to pay you to do that. Even if it brings you joy and you think you're good at it, there's no demand for your services there, right? So what are you good at objectively, right? Maybe you really show and demonstrate talent in certain areas, and the world will recognize that and signal that back to you and confirm and validate that. What are you good at? Are you joyful when you do it? That doesn't mean you walk around gleeful and dancing all the time, because work is hard no matter what the work is, right? But really you feel like you're doing important work that brings you deep satisfaction, and that it's important work. And that can really be anything, of course, but it brings you joy at a deep level, that I really love what I do, that on Sunday nights, I don't fear going to work, that work is really a part of who I am. And I really like being there. I like the nature of what I do. It's not easy, but I love it. What are you good at? What brings you joy? And does the world need that? Is there going to be demand for that? Is someone going to pay you to do that? And so those 3 questions kind of work to confirm some really important things. And they're also realistic questions. It's not that, geez, I want to go, I think I'll go to law school. I advise pre-law students all the time. And I say, listen, that's like saying maybe I want to go to medical school. Well, wait a minute. Have you demonstrated aptitude for that? Have you shown strengths in biology, chemistry, and all of the hard science classes? You know, has the world signaled back to you that you have strength there? You don't just go there on a whim. You know, you really want to pick a graduate program that will allow you to take advantage of some natural strengths and aptitudes and something you're deeply curious about, because that puts you on a road where, you know, you don't want to change course at some point after a year and say, it wasn't really for me. So really do your due diligence up front and explore the programs and your aptitudes and really look for that fit, that match, and take a visit to the campuses, right, where you're admitted. Walk around in the cafeteria and talk to students. Say, do you mind if I ask you a few questions about daily life here on this campus? You know, I mean, what if John didn't like Vanderbilt? You know, that's a long way to go to have an apartment and have a down payment for tuition and quit your job, right? So you want to kind of decrease the amount of risk involved by doing your upfront searches. So that would be kind of my thought about, you know, looking for fit. And then I guess we want to move. I don't see any questions in the chat.
Yeah, Tom,
Kenny?
if you don't mind if I interject real quick.
Please, Kenny.
Yeah, going off your segment, going off that, you know, I was just wondering for you, in particular, why did you stay in the classroom? And kind of what led you to go pursue your doctorate at BC? And kind of after you got your JD, I mean, you could have gone to become a corporate lawyer or gone somewhere else, but what kind of led you to stay in the classroom?
You know, Kenny, that's a great question. I don't think I've told anyone this. Not that it's a secret, but I did my community service at BC High. We had, I forget the number of hours. It might have been like 140 hours or something like that. Our whole fourth quarter senior year was spent out. Do you still do that? Okay.
I think the most that we do is 60 in our junior year.
Oh, okay.
From what I remember, I'm not sure what the policy is now, but yeah.
Well, we had a full-on community service program. Like the last quarter senior year was up, and I worked in a school because I played sports and had to be back on campus at 2:30 or whatever. And this was, you know, late March, April, and May, and I was a teacher's aide over in Dorchester, with a classmate who's now a trustee at Boston College High School, Kevin Powers. And we just really loved these kids, you know, we loved working with them, playing ball at recess, tutoring them, teaching them. And so I kind of developed maybe a soft spot in my heart to teach. And then, so I got my degrees, and then I taught after college, but I knew I was going to go to grad school. And then, even though I had my degree and I worked in a law firm, I think that I was billing every 6 minutes. I had to bill a client for my work. And that's really tedious, right? I mean, Andrew, you know this world, right? And other executives in other industries know about billable hours, but in law, it's really, you got to get at least 8 a day on paper. And that's difficult to do. And that didn't bring me a lot of joy, you know, nor did working the day after Christmas, you know. And so I kind of wanted to have maybe some balance in my life. And I don't want to sound corny, but I wanted to do something that I thought I was better suited for and maybe made a difference. And I wanted to use my education and my advanced degrees to give back and share. The way that my teachers at BC High shared with us, you know, there were a lot more Jesuits there when I went to BC High. And I might have had 8 or 10 Jesuits in my 4 years. And now some students won't have any. And these are people that gave their life, you know, to education, to service, to seeing God in all things, to saving souls, you know, and these great expressions that are more than expressions. They're, you know, sincerely held core values. And I was taken by that Jesuit, you know, approach to service and giving back and education too. And so I think all of those things conspired to lead me back to the classroom. And I love what I do, you know, with young people. I teach in our MBA program and our undergraduate program, you know, when people are exploring different career possibilities. I have students come in and sometimes say, oh, I hate accounting. And I say, well, why are you majoring in accounting? They say, well, my dad wants me to. And I say, well, with all due respect to your dad, you're going to be the one doing it for 40 years. You got to make sure you like that, you know, and maybe have a talk with your dad and say, Dad, I really need to have a heart to heart, or your mother, you know, say, this is not what I want to do. It's not what I feel called to do. And so, you know, you can have these conversations with young people as they're discerning and thinking about their role in the world and what they're good at, you know, what brings them joy. And we're all different. We're all different. We have to follow our heart to some extent, you know, got to pay the bills, but we also want to follow our heart and God's plan for us and God's path too. So I do think that's one defining difference I'll mention here at the end of my comments, you know, that I think there's a purpose for our existence on the planet. And that belief came when I was at BC High. You know, there's a reason for our existence, and that there should be a faith component that we integrate into our professional pursuits. And we really think about those questions at a deeper level. And that's why I still have BC High in my resume, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that was definitely a great answer. Yeah, we can transition to the Q&A now. I see a question from Anthony Al. So says,
Great.
yeah, John, you can take it away. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Anthony, thank you for the question. Appreciate it. Sales desk. Oh, absolutely. For me, in terms of working on the sales desk, it was my first client-facing role. So my ability to succeed there really was kind of, it was kind of jumped in the water. Kind of my ability to kind of accelerate the learning curve there was kind of like stick your nose where it shouldn't be, or where you don't think it should be, and kind of just go from there. So I think my ability on the sales at Fidelity was, I think, not necessarily the technical skills within just knowing bonds or the bond markets, interest rates, and all that good jazz, but it's more so that just kind of speaking to clients, soft skills, management, managing those relationships, in terms of, I think one thing that really hit home was in my negotiations class I took last year. In terms of people think of negotiations, strictly speaking, of maybe just like over buying a car or buying a house. Negotiations seep into all aspects of your life. You're constantly selling yourself. Every single relationship you have, there's sacrifices, there's kind of times to kind of force your own kind of opinion, or to kind of sit back and listen. Everything little kind of interaction on a daily basis is a negotiation. So in terms of speaking with clients, ranging from like your mom and pop shop running a advisory out of their garage in Colorado versus BlackRock and Goldman Sachs Asset Management, running that gamut, and being able to manage those relationships, negotiate, regardless of kind of the size of the client or what they bring to the table. In terms of my soft skill development at the MBA, I think that it really kind of stems from those relationships that I was able to kind of build and also maintain over those 2 years on the sales desk.
One question that I was thinking about during this conversation was, I was having a conversation. Sorry for the background noise. I was having a conversation about a month ago about getting an advanced degree, and this person I was talking to was talking about the oversaturation of the grad degree, specifically in Boston and Northeast. So I was just wondering, John and Andrew, if you could talk about whether you see a difference between living up here and having gone to school outside of this region, in terms of the grad degree. I think that would be, you know, a good question for those in the audience.
Yeah, I can take this one first if you want, John. I mean, I guess there is a point to that as far as like, you know, oversaturation with grad degrees, but like Tom had kind of mentioned, it's almost become the new norm, as you know, you almost need that extra degree now to kind of stand out. But it also, I mean, there's a ton of people with JDs, ton of people with MBAs, and ton of people with a mixture of both. Like, it is what you do with it that matters. I wouldn't focus on the number, and you know, you're going against someone that has a Harvard degree versus a William & Mary degree. I mean, this summer I worked with people that were in the top 10, top 20 schools, and William & Mary is more of a top 50 school, but it's more about who you are. I think that degree gets you in the door. And then from there, it's, you know, it's up to you to really distinguish yourself. And that goes for all types of programs. That's not just a JD or an MBA. I think it's just that degree that helps you get the interview, and then everything else is more on a personal level. So that'd just be my advice on it. I don't know if John, you have other comments on that.
No, I echo most of your sentiments there, Andrew. In terms of, I think tying it back to Andrew, what we saw earlier, like in terms of internships, I struggled to find an internship, especially back in Boston, given the kind of the job shortage and also just the number of schools within the Boston area, the number of top level schools. But with that said, if you want to be in DC, New York, or Boston, I think just like Andrew said, you just need that degree to get to the table, and then from there you can really just sell yourself. A lot of these interviews are just that I've experienced, they just kind of get to know you as a person. It's not asking you like to highly technical skills, unless you're doing iBanking or PE, you might see some of those, but most of it is just having that degree just gets you to the table, and then you kind of just let yourself kind of do the rest, just be yourself. I think that's my biggest lesson here is don't try to like speak to what you think the interviewer wants you to hear, just be yourself. I think that goes a long way, and I think there's studies that have proven that you're more likely to get the job or the internship if you just be authentic. So I think in terms of going back to Andrew, I think the degree itself, I think you need it to just get to the table. But being a BCI grad, I know you're a man of high character. You've gone through a rigorous curriculum. You're very, very intelligent. I think you can probably speak to those experiences just at BCI alone and get you a good shot at landing an internship or a job.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great answers. Thank you guys for that. Are there, for those in the audience, if you guys have any questions, we can take, in the next 30 seconds to, you can put those in the chat box. Aside from that, Andrew, John, Tom, if you guys can just speak on, if you guys have any closing remarks or anything that you want to say to those who are in the audience today, please feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, I can, give some closing remarks, at least from my side. I think it's important that you find out what you love and you like. And I like Tom's thing, how does that affect the world? Honestly, I don't think we ask ourselves that enough. And I think a lot of people don't ask the first couple, enough in their lives, like, what do you actually like to do? And I think it can be very general. So like for me, I like research and I love writing. And so it's just finding a job or a degree that kind of helps you build off that. And I think you need to realize that you're never going to be perfect, and criticism is very good. I know how broad that sounds, but like you should be looking for critiques. You don't always want to receive praise. Sometimes critiques actually build you up more than praise does itself. And so what I would do, I'm going to be doing consulting for JP Morgan. So I'm an internal consultant for a large bank. I'm not doing banking, but that allows me to kind of build off, my research skills, my writing skills, my public speaking skills, but within a different industry. So I'm still learning, but I get to almost improve the things I love to do. So that would be my advice. And obviously, like, I would reach out to people. I mean, like, I think John and I would be more than willing to answer further questions, but I think hearing about people's experiences really does help. I had my dad for law school. I had friends that took the MBA program before I did. So I kind of knew what I was doing. And I think it's just nice to know what you signed up for.
I certainly echo Andrew's comments there. Everything for me, I think the general theme, I think Tom and Andrew both touched on it earlier for in terms of BCI, going back to the grad being open to growth and that kind of value, like appreciating what the world has to offer and kind of finding your role within it to kind of for the greater good. For continue to put yourself in uncomfortable positions. Doing so will only benefit you going forward. BCI, you had recited an excerpt of the Odyssey in front of your freshman year class, Mr. Toto's class. Like, you're doing these things at 14, 15, 16, 17. Just continue to seek out new opportunities outside your comfort zone. I don't know, take up a culinary class, go to do yoga, do something that's kind of like very uncharacteristic of yourself. Doing so will like benefit you greatly going forward. I think there was one quote from Jamie Dimon. I don't endorse what he has to say or anything like that, but it kind of hit home for me. I think he said, great decisions and actions cannot come forward without swimming in a wild state of not knowing. An ability to deal with not knowing is more important than whatever it is you do know. So in terms of just constantly put yourself in uncomfortable situations, and the more you find yourself in those uncomfortable conversations, the more comfortable and kind of ability to deal with those is going to be a great asset for you going forward. And that kind of really, for me, that stems from my BCI experience.
My closing comment, I really like what Andrew and John both said there. My closing comment would be, to be curious and explore your curiosity. Anthony just put up a really great question, which signaled to me, and to all of us that he's probably or maybe contemplating that advanced degree. He's thinking about it. So there's an internal stirring. Ignatius talked about that. You listen to internal stirrings, and that voice and that kind of desire. And these can be signs from God, that this might be something we want to pursue. So listen to that, be curious, trust your gut, and then really be coachable. Every coach knows that there are players on teams that really want to improve and learn from mistakes. And they own up to, they say, oh yeah, coach, that was on me. I know, I did it, I'm sorry. Others sit there and kind of, they're not as coachable. They have a little bit of an attitude. And people in the workplace don't want that. They want people who can adapt and adjust and learn from their mistakes, and that seek constructive feedback openly so that they can become better, and masters, at their craft. So those are my closing comments. Wish everybody well. Kenny?
Yeah, first and foremost, I just want to thank all of you guys, the panelists, those in the audience who attended today. I just want to thank everybody here for attending, for giving comments, for giving wisdom on their experience. So yeah, thank you so much and especially to you, Tom, Andrew, John. I definitely couldn't have put this on without you guys. So just wanted to first and foremost thank you guys. And second, another point I wanted to get across was that, for those in the audience, you can really hear, I think you can really hear the impact of the BCI experience in this conversation. And you can kind of hear that Jesuit, sentiment, or that Jesuit influence all throughout this conversation. So it just lets you know that it is more than just a conversation on grad school and kind of getting logistics and out the way, but there's definitely more to that. And then, feel free to, for those in your audience, feel free to, contact these guys. I see everybody's putting their email in the chat box. Feel free to leverage the network as always. That's why BC Hire was created. As an institution, we were seeing that, our alums were having some struggles with the career centers at their respective universities. So we established this because of the BCI network and the power of it. We're all across the city, we're all across the state, we're all across the country. So feel free regarding anything to contact these guys, to contact myself with any questions. I do work on, resume, LinkedIn workshops, finding alums jobs and just different opportunities. So feel free to contact me. And yeah, I just want to thank everybody again. I hope everybody has a great day. I'll put my email in the chat box really quickly. And it's also on the my email is also on the flyer that was sent out to all your emails. So thank you everybody again, and I hope everybody has a great day. So
thanks, Kenny.
Yeah.
Congrats on graduation again.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Yeah, congrats, Ken.
Congrats, Kenny.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. Have a great day.
You too. Have a great one.
Bye-bye.